Yeah. Welcome to Planeta Venus, a space for our Latino community.
And it's my pleasure to be here.
Thank you.
Absolutely. We're in this together. We need each other. We need to be able to communicate and get information out the best we can to be able to make sure that families are engaged and know what's going on.
And now more than ever, right?
Absolutely. Well, what I've really learned, when you're in a classroom, you kind of, you have your interpretation of what things are. But once I've gotten to this level at this stage, I really have redefined what I think diversity really means, because diversity is just not always about a culture or a ethnicity group. It really is about thoughts. It's about opinions. It's about inclusion of many different folks, different thoughts about what they feel about things, what they bring to the table. And that's really what makes a school district or a community really rich. It's just that diversity of all of those things that make us a really cool place to be. So diversity, actually the defining of diversity really has changed for me, because again, a lot of times people think diversity is African American or Latina or whatever, but it really is about students with disabilities. It's about LGBTQ. I mean, it's just about all of those things that people bring to the table that makes us the diversity conversation come alive. Yes, I can just give you some examples as of during the pandemic. There's like 3 or 4 different mandates as it relates to wearing a mask.
Mm-hmm.
So you have the governor who has her order. You have the county who has their order. You have pediatricians who have their order. You have families and parents who have their opinions about that. Mm-hmm. So you have a variety of folks who have many different opinions, whether it's medical, whether it's political charged, either way. And then they look to you to enforce all of those different opinions, mandates, expectations, and doesn't matter which one you choose, you're not going to make everyone happy. Mm-hmm. So that's just one example of being a leader. And even though I am the superintendent, sometimes many of the decisions that are being made are given to me to implement, whether I believe them or not. It's just my responsibility to ensure that they are enforced. So sometimes I get blamed or fussed at sometimes for decisions that other people make that we are responsible for implementing. So it is kind of difficult to be in this situation sometimes when you are given directions from many different places, and you then have to figure out and decipher and then move forward with what you're being asked to do. So that's just one example of masks. Even though it's my ultimate decision for snow days, what ends up happening is that we have tons of protocols that sit behind me in those decision making. So I don't just sleep at night and then wake up and say, oh boy, it looks bad outside, I think we should just close the school. I know people think that. Right. And I have a daughter that attends a school district, and a lot of people say, Anaya, tell your mom to shut down school because it's snow outside. But it doesn't work that easy either. Actually, we have protocols and an extremely large team that consists of facilities, and it consists of communications and all of the people who support the buildings. And we look at things such as whether or not we look at the temperature. So we have protocols that say if it's below a certain temperature, this is what happens when kids are outside at the bus stop for periods of time, what's safe, what's unsafe. We look at whether or not the bus company can turn on, sometimes if the temperatures are too low, it's hard for them to get the buses up and running appropriately. Sometimes they don't start, or those kinds of things. And, so we listen to what the bus company is saying. And so we are up really early in the morning. We actually go out and drive, because even though the main streets may be cleaned up, there are side streets where our buses go to pick up kids that they can't get into. So again, it is a very, very complex decision to determine whether or not you close school or not. The parking lots at the schools, I mean, or do we have enough time to be able to clean that up so that we don't have people falling and having major accidents out there on those parking lots and giving time for that to occur? So it is so many things. And then we have to take into consideration families who may need, they have to still go to work and their kids are being left at home, whether they need to be fed, what's the best. I mean, so again, it's just a complex situation with many dynamics to it, and a big team that sits on the phone at 2:00 in the morning, looking at the weather and trying to make those decisions. Yes, you are absolutely right. During this pandemic, I mean, we knew that we have ways in which we communicate. Didn't really have a good feel about what that looked like with our didn't really kind of have an idea of what that looked like. But when we went through this pandemic, what we found not only was a communication issue with our Latino families, but we also had problems with a lot of other things that we will begin to continue to address. But in specific of that is the lack of communication. We actually pulled together a team to talk specifically about that data of not being able to reach. Now, we communicated many, many different things. We tried to do many different things, but we see that the things that we were trying may not have been the best ways to communicate. It wasn't our effort to not communicate, but it was because we thought this was the best way, and our data told us maybe not so much. So what we decided we would do as a first step only, now mind you, we're going to do some other things, but for a first step, we decided that we needed to move forward with a Spanish language communication specialist. And that person would actually work, some of the specifics of that job description is to develop strategies to maintain and coordinate and expand the stakeholder engagement through contact on district Spanish social media and websites and platforms. And we also thought not only is it just about Spanish speaking on those social media platforms, but we also thought it was important for them to help us with a strategy to be proactive and to be able to have reciprocal communication, which is back and forth, and not just us giving a whole bunch of information, but how are we receiving information back into the system so that it helps us to be able to make decisions about many different things that happen within our school district. So that is one of the first steps that we are going to be doing. The second piece is not just about communication, but actually also about how our students are being successful within the organization in which we have. It's great to communicate. We got to also get some outcomes. So one of the other things that we've talked a lot about is professional development for teachers in the vein of cultural proficiency. Teachers need to know who they are teaching and where these students are coming from so that they can best deploy the best strategies. They can build those relationships a little bit differently. They can understand who's sitting in front of them. You're going to get better outcomes. And so we are going to begin some very specific strategies and a comprehensive plan on training of staff on many different facets of cultural proficiency. And so we think that that's also going to help because, again, if you understand who you're serving, more than likely your instructional strategies are going to be different. The way that you approach families, the way that you communicate with families and engage families are going to look different because you understand better who you're serving. So that's two pieces where we're going to begin our work with our families. Yeah, we are actually going to have a meeting with our Board of Education members. It's going to be announced here in the next hour. We're going to have a meeting on Thursday at noon for our Board of Education to make the selections, or hopefully have conversation and more dialogue, and maybe if they feel so, they would make some choices to get us moving so that families can know exactly what it is that we're going to do. So again, there are several things that we have to have in place. We have to know what right now we know one of the executive orders for sure is what we need to do, and that's the wearing of the masks. Everybody's going to wear the masks. We're going to wash our hands, sanitize our hands every hour. We're going to take temperatures of people entering into our spaces. So we know for sure that that executive order has been signed and it goes into place on August the 10th. What we don't know is whether or not the school is going to open up before the holidays. I think it's, Labor Day. So we have to wait to see whether the State Board of Education votes to accept that, which means that KSDE will then mandate to us, and that's what we would do. However, we do know that as a school district, we have several options for our families to be able to select from as we speak today. So we know that we have decided as a school district that choice is important for our families. We didn't want to just pick one or the other. We wanted to provide opportunities for families to make selections and choices. So one of the choices, if our community has a low level of virus in our community, these are our three options. I want to make that clear, because a lot of times people hear these three options and think that no matter what the virus is doing in our community, we're going to stick with these three. Just know that there are opportunities for us to pivot to fully online if the virus dictates that to us. Okay, so let's be clear there. But in the meantime, we still want parents to have choices if the environment allows for us to do that. And one of them is on-site, which is in-person learning. And that's pretty much the traditional face-to-face instruction with enhanced health and safety guidelines in place. And those things are things like disinfecting, cleaning, we're talking about the building improvements and all those kinds of things. And so those are things that we would do in mitigation of making sure those things are done on-site in person. And that's a choice for families. Then we have My School Remote, which is where a student can practice fully online learning while they're still enrolled in their base school. So let's say, for instance, if a student is a student at Cloud and they wanted to stay enrolled in Cloud, then they could do, and they didn't want to go in person, they could still go to My Remote School, and they could have a teacher that pretty much is a teacher from Cloud, not sure who yet, but they would then do the remote learning with that student. Now, My School Remote is going to look very similar to what happens during the school day. So families will need to log on at a certain time, like a regular school day. Let's say if your school starts at 9 o'clock, you would log in at 9 o'clock and your teacher would be there, and you and your classmates would be on a screen, and you would be working together with your teacher. And you would have to spend a certain amount of time on the computer during the day with your teacher. You'll have some times where you'll be doing some independent work. Then you'll be back on with your classroom teacher. So it would look similar to a school day. You'll have a lunch break, you'll have restroom breaks, but it would look very similar to what happens inside of a school day. Then what would have to happen is the teacher and the parent would have to sign off that they've completed a certain amount of time for auditing purposes for the Kansas State Department of Ed. Now, that's not my decision, but again, people will be upset at me because they have to sign off and do extra work with the teacher and the parent. But that really is a requirement, because the last time we did this, no one was accountable to the times that they were supposed to be learning. We didn't have, you contact me once a week, you're on your own, that kind of thing. And that's not what our families as a state told us, hence why the state put expectations in place for this My School Remote type of of experience with students. And so again, they are options. Now I will talk just a little bit about these two models. Whichever model a parent selects, they must stay in that particular model for a semester because of staffing.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's hard for us to staff if 3 weeks down the road a teacher is teaching remote and then she loses all of her kids and now we've got to shift that teacher back into a regular classroom. And so it's hard to shift teachers in and out of that. So we've got to have some consistency with that. So those are the two, and then we have another option, which is our third option, which is Education Imagine Academy, which is a virtual school. So families would exit out of their regular school. So if I was a student at Cloud and I wanted to go to Education Imagine Academy, I would exit out of Cloud and I would enroll in Education Imagine Academy. Now, this particular virtual option is for kindergarten through 12th grade, and it provides flexibility in the scheduling, and it is individually paced. So it would be more so of a student who doesn't need to be in front of a teacher all day, but would like to have the opportunity to stay at home and do learning that way. They don't have to spend time logging hours and signing on and off. But again, this is for students who are individually motivated to be able, in a family that is committed to ensuring that the same skills and techniques are still learned, but done whenever they want to do it, however they want to do it. So it's really more centered around students who are able and families that are able to do that. So we want to be clear of that. And also, those families also still have a counselor that is available. Social workers are still available for students if they need those kinds of things as well. But really, this model is for people who really can handle this type of an environment. We also have a full extended remote learning outside of the school, exclusive everyone, just so that parents know we're planning for that as well. We don't necessarily, we hope we can get it, the masks are on and people are doing what they need to do so that we can do this. But again, depending upon where we are as a community, we do and we are preparing for that option of fully all remote learning if we need to.
If everybody needs to go home, is that what?
That is correct.
Okay.
What we were asking parents to do is to go ahead and enroll. Fill out all of your paperwork, and we're asking you to make a decision as if we are in a space where this decision, these three options are available. Because we have to be able to start making plans. We have to, or else we won't be ready to start ever, because we have to know who's coming, right? So we're going to ask parents to enroll. Now, there will be a period of time where we have this soft launch, is what we've called it, where it's kind of like an orientation period, where families will be able to experience the one that they chose and say, ooh, I don't like this. I thought I was going to like this, but I don't. So now I want to pick this. So that gives us a week to kind of let people experience it, get a feel for it, and then make a final commitment. So just because you pick it today doesn't mean that tomorrow you can't change your mind. So I think people need to know that, because people are like, I'm not going to enroll until I know what it is that they're going to do, you know. And I think that's the fear for us, is because people are saying that and we can't finish planning. So they need to know, go ahead and do it. Just know that you still have an option once we've kind of got going, moving forward. No, it is still truancy, because we have to take roll. We will take roll in either My School Remote or in-school person, and those things still will be reported to the appropriate folks if we cannot find students. So you must enroll your kid and you must have them attend school. We don't have any, all we know is that we made choices available to our parents. We also have to take into consideration also the staffing, so we don't have anything in place until we get to the date in which we're going to start school. We will then begin to look at where we are as a community. That's why I'm begging people to wear masks and social distance and wash your hands and do all the things that you're supposed to do to try to stop the spread. Because if we can't stop the spread at the levels in which we're going, remote may be our only option, right. Fully remote, but if we can get it to stop spreading as quickly as we're doing, and we can get it to kind of start even going down, that would be wonderful. Then we may be able to then move into the options where families have all of these choices, which is where we want to be. But we're not going to close off the option that if we cannot, that we don't want to bring back and continue to cause the problems that our community is having with the spread by bringing all these folks, together. Yes, social distancing is one of the things we're going to do. Is lots of things we're going to do. The first thing is we're going to do a lot of educating of not just the teachers, but the students as well. So we'll have tons of videos that talk about, little bitty kids, they like to hug, they like to be all on you. And so we're going to teach how to fist bump, to do your shoulder bumps, not fist bumps, but shoulder bumps. And we're going to teach them how to appropriately wear the mask and appropriately how to take the mask off. We're going to talk to them about how to wash their hands and making sure that they lather it correctly and underneath the nails and all of the things that we need to teach our students to do. We'll be doing things of that nature. We're going to have signage up. So we'll have signs with the 6 feet so kids know where to stand and how far they need to be apart from each other. We will also, again, as far as social distancing, those face masks are going to be very, very helpful for us to continue to make sure that as we are passing each other like we do at the grocery store or any other places, that we have those masks and that we are reducing the opportunity for any of those droplets to be out in the spaces because we have our masks on. We're going to be staggering passing periods. That's a huge deal in the high schools and the middle schools. So everybody just won't be coming all out at the same time, passing period times. Actually, what will end up happening is a lot of our classrooms will be staying in place. So teachers will be moving versus students moving. So that will be other things that we will be able to do. So I know a lot of times we've had assemblies and all kinds of pep rallies and things of that nature. They will no longer happen, or they will happen in that contained space where kids are, and it will be videotaped in or some sort, but there will be no assemblies, mass gatherings, those kinds of things. We're going to have one-way traffic. So when kids are traveling, we're only going one direction this way. This hall goes the other direction. You don't get to just go back and forth. So all of those things. We also know that in the classrooms, we're going to be positioning and making sure that we declutter classrooms so that we have spaces, more space to social distance. We're going to use other spaces within our buildings. We have libraries. We have other things where you can break kids up into smaller groups. We're going to use our paraprofessionals a little bit differently so that we have more people to be able to spread kids out effectively and still stay within the laws and the rules that we all have to follow as far as teacher contact. So there are lots of different ways in which we will be working on social distancing. We also know that there are areas where we will be doing plexiglass, kind of like what you see in the grocery store. So where there's places where we're not able to do as much social distancing, we will be able to use plexiglass as another alternative for ways in which we are, staying in our own spaces enough to be able to mitigate um, the spread of the virus. So I think those are some of the ways that we're going to be doing some things. I can talk about nutrition services and eating. We actually are not going to be having, we have those grad kids get to pick what they want to eat and all those cool things. Won't be any of that. We will be having, schools will have kids get things that are already put together. They don't get to put their hands and things on everything. They will come, get what they're going to eat, take it to another space and eat there. Elementary kids, they'll be eating in their classroom. High school kids will be spread out amongst they'll have different designed areas for eating, and they'll have more lunch periods. So their schedules will look a lot different. A lot of people ask about the buses. Again, talking about those temperature checks, you're talking about getting on the bus with masks on. We will load the bus according to where your stop is from the from the back. So when kids are getting on, they go straight to the back and they fill the bus up from the back, moving to the front. When they're exiting from the bus, they will leave the bus from the front of the bus to the back of the bus. The front kids will come out first, so there won't be a lot of mixing and flopping around. And we will be contact tracing. So we'll know who was with who. Families will have to sit together on the buses. We'll have assigned seats so we know who's sitting next to who. So if something does happen, we know exactly who they were with, who they were sitting by, all these other how long they were sitting next to those folks, and all of those things we need to do to report to the Department of Health so that we can do the appropriate contact tracing. Yes, yes, yes. We actually have a huge flow chart, and as soon as they're finalized, we will be placing all this stuff, and they will be translated onto our website. So there are protocols for that. Not only is it communicating, but it is about the cleaning regimen. It's about how long, if there are people that need to be quarantined or isolated or whatever it is, there's a protocol and a regimen for all of that. Yes. Well, we're going to take care of them like we do any other. So for instance, if you have a student that needs feeding, or if they need changing or those kinds of things, our staff are still going to be doing that. Those teachers and paraprofessionals will be dressed kind of like they are in a hospital. They'll have on robes. They will have on masks or shields, whichever ones they need, and gloves, the appropriate nitrate gloves. So all of that will be available for staff to use, the appropriate PPE, for them to be able to do those same things with students that have disabilities that need that type of protection or services. So we will continue to do that for our students. And protect our teachers and our paraprofessionals too. Yeah. It's both. When we make decisions, it's not just about the teacher, or it's not just about the kids. We got to look at both and try to protect both parties. Yeah. Well, one of the things is, I think it's going to be important, is for them to know where to call to be able to talk to someone that they can understand. We are trying to figure out, we talked a lot about hotlines where people, and I know at the MES, which is a multi-language, lingual educational service center, we have people that are there, and we are finding that they are bombarded with communication about what's going on. We're trying to determine what is going to be the best way. And that's why when we hire this new person, that's going to be part of her job, is to help us to understand what are the best ways in which we can provide a contact with someone in the school or in the district level, where we're able to have parents to call and get immediate information instead of being transferred over here and transferred over there, and then they just get lost. But we want to make sure that we have that immediate communication with that family to be able to answer the questions that they may have. We talked to other school districts who have already started, and that was actually the least of their issue. They thought it was going to be the biggest issue that they had, but it actually was the least, because they made sure that the appropriate, because again, every student is not going to have to wear, I mean, to be honest, for instance, there are certain kids who have health concerns and issues, or have social and emotional needs that will not require them to have to wear a mask. That is definitely in the executive order, because there are some health reasons why it would be detrimental for some kids to wear, or adults to wear, masks. So we'll have to make sure that those kids are social distanced differently. But those are the kids who would struggle with the mask on. Typically, other students that are able to, they tend to put those on. They make sure that they're comfortable on, and they move throughout the day without with the mask on. And that's what we have been hearing over and over from other school districts in other states who have already started, that the mask was not that big of a deal. It was other things, but it wasn't masks. That, first of all, I just want to thank them for showing us grace during the last spring. That was a lot of, work when you didn't have a technology device. So that is why we've made that commitment to buying $24 million worth of devices, and we're going to be spending about $7 million on internet access, because that's how you close the digital divide. It's not just the unit, it's the connectivity that you have, and we're committed to ensuring that. So I just want them to know that we thought about them, and that we looked at our data. And that is also another reason why we felt like we weren't being able to engage and communicate effectively with our Latina families, is because of the lack of connectivity and the strategy to be able to communicate. And we're going to be working on that. And that whenever we're able to get together again, I am going to come out and try to do some type of a listening session, or even think of ways, if we can't do it this year, or if we find another way to do it this year with our technology, to be able to do it, because I really want to listen, and I really want to learn about what it is that we can do to better serve and engage our families. And so I am committed to doing that. And we are meeting on a regular basis, just so that you know, we have an equity office, and we're meeting on a regular basis to continue to talk strategy. And once we have our new person hired, we will be utilizing the strategies. And of course, that person will be out and about trying to figure out what strategies we need to put in place. And we're going to take a pulse on it too, to make sure that what we've put in place is working. Because again, you can assume that it's working because you think you're doing all that you can, but you don't know until you ask somebody. So we'll be doing a lot of dialoguing and asking. So if you could just be patient with us as we move forward in our new plan, if they can enroll, get their kids enrolled, and make a selection knowing that they have an option to change, that will be the most helpful thing that they could do. Making sure that they have spaces in their homes for kids to do their homework, and to be able to get online, or whatever model they choose, so that they can make sure that the kids have the most successful experience that they can during this unprecedented time. One thing I will tell is, these kids, when they get done, they're going to be resilient kids, and they're going to have skill sets that we didn't have because of this pandemic. So we're going to have to try to make some lemonade out of this lemon, and make sure that our kids are able to pick those skills up that no other kids in the world will be able to have, except for our kids. So Thank you for this opportunity. And my door is always open. And if, and I know that, I don't know how, I have to figure out too a better way to be able to have them have access to me if they want that. So, but I am always open to hear concerns and ideas that people have, and I will stand ready to respond.
I thank you very much for this time, and thank you for all the efforts and all your listening to our community. I look forward to continue working closely with you for the better of our community.
Absolutely. Thank you, and I look forward to it as well.
Thank you.